tell you. It really isn't. It requires very careful note-taking, and it requires a lot of trial and error as well. You know, you're not going to just be able to do this quickly, but I would like you to try this, and perhaps some of you are already doing this. So here's where I'm going with this. For instance, the next time you're making an Oktoberfest and you're wondering, you know, it needs that bread-like toasted toast quality to it, how do I achieve it? Okay, don't cheat, don't go Google it, this and that, think about it. I need to get this from my raw material. It's going to come from my malt. So I need to get very much acquainted with my malts that I'm going to use. And I'm going to use all my senses, your eyes, and your ears, and your nose, and your mouth. That's your laboratory, okay? And you need to find out which malts are going to give you that character, okay? And this, again, not an easy task. Great note-taking is going to save you. You'll be able to go back time and time again and see what gave you what. But I think once you get the hang of this, you'll really be on your way. And same with like the next American IPA you make, you know, and it calls for that big high level of citrus character and the grapefruit quality. How do I get that into my beer? Well, you know, okay, that's going to be your hops, right? Now, you need to get very much familiar with which hops are going to produce what. So again, your laboratory, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, that's it. That's what you got. That's your limitations. But it's also your power. It's going to be what makes your beer your beer. So once you're able to associate what malts and what hops produce what aromas and what flavors, oh, are you on your way. You really are going to be a superstar in the beer world. And again, this isn't easy to do. Okay, don't, you know, I know if you're going to be back in your brew house cursing me a little bit later, like, okay, I just missed. But don't forget about happy accidents either. All sorts of great things come where you think you made a big mistake. You're laughing. Deanne made one of the world's best beers I ever tasted with a complete, what you thought was a disaster at the time, where the malt went right through your false bottom of your boil kettle and got a smoke character that you couldn't achieve in a million years with any amount of peated malt or Bamberg. So, you know, there is the happy accident out there that can help you along. But once you really know which malts, which hops are going to give you what flavors, what aromas, you're well on your way to really becoming a superstar brewer. And I would encourage you to try this method. And again, I'm a very low-tech brewer. I keep paper ledgers. I have book after book that I would do, and I considered the recipe formulation and that part of the brew day the week before as part of the art. I put as much effort into the recipe formulation and writing it out by hand and referencing the last time I brewed it with all the notes I took was part of the art. And you know, when you tour these European breweries and old breweries where you see these beautiful paper ledgers with the beautiful cursive writing, that was very inspirational to me. I thought, that's another art. So yeah, you know, Pro Mash is great too. It's just taking that pencil out of your hand and giving you a little bit more than you probably need, you know. So I'm a big fan of that. I will admit at Alesmith we use Pro Mash too. You know, it's just at that level, you know, we need their help. So again, just keep it in mind. I'm not poo-pooing the tech world. So many wonderful things come from it. It gives us a great starting point, a great base to do these things. And again, the style guidelines are your friend. Don't think I have to invent the next great, completely abnormal beer, but that's fine too. You know, if that's you, and you can make that beer, wonderful. But the style guidelines, a lot of smart people put a lot of time into thinking these things through and you know, getting those descriptors for you. So my message really was to take those descriptors and figure out with your own senses how to associate your raw materials to those words and your ideas. Okay, so there it is in a nutshell. We are pouring the next beer here, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a briefer on that. This is our Little Devil Belgian Pale Ale. It's on 5.8% alcohol. It's in the Belgian style of pale ales. Tremendous respect for the Belgian brewers, like many of you I'm sure share. There's two kinds of orange peel we use in that, the Curacao and the sweet. We use coriander seeds as well. Trappist candy sugar, which the Belgians think we're kind of retarded for using that. You know, that we don't need to be spending all that money when they just throw in corn sugar, which I'm going to tell you, many of the Belgian brewers do that. We use the Trappist 500 yeast strain, which I've heard and don't know for sure that it's the Chimay strain, but it gives you this wonderful phenol ester profile. We ferment it a little bit warmer. We're one of the few American breweries, I think, that do push our Belgians into the 80s Fahrenheit. So don't be scared of that, you guys. I know we're always taught to keep this stuff in the 60s, but you do want to... Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you. Oh, I have one. You speed the whole time? No one told me. Thank you. Summer's great to brew your Belgians for that reason. You get in the 80s and your crossing lifts as much as the volume of beer. Don't worry. You want that bubble gum, that fruit thing to really pop. Little Devil was born of one of these compromises that you're at times forced to do in the brew world, although we never take our eye off the ball. It's always about the art. I try to keep the businessman's hat parked when I can. However, we make another beer called Horny Devil, and it's 11% Belgian Golden Strong coriander that is kind of a yeast graveyard. You're not going to harvest anything out of those 11% beers that's worth anything. So we were forced to always make starters for that. And it finally got to a point we said, why don't we design a beer that we can harvest from, a lower alcohol, delicious Belgian ale. We can take that yeast and put it into our Horny Devil. So it was born of one of those kind of decisions you have to make at times in the commercial realm. However, artistically, we formulated a beer that we're very happy with. The Belgian beers are a little bit of a harder sell in the marketplace. Our Nut Brown Ale, Nautical Nut Brown, was introduced the exact same year as Little Devil. And it's skyrocketed in sales, while Little Devil has crept up to it, but it's still a little bit behind. How do you burp in front of a microphone? Okay, sorry.
Switch off.
Yeah, switch off there. Okay, so why don't we turn a little bit now about, maybe some of you are here to hear about the beer-related crafts. So we'll talk a little bit about that now. These are crafts that kind of scratch the same itch, get you very excited. Your knowledge of home brewing sets you up for many of these hobbies. You know, your attention to cleanliness, the sanitation aspect. You already own a lot of the things you may need to do these other hobbies. So it's kind of a great starting point. I like talking to home brewers about this because they already have everything. They got the knowledge going already. They understand fermentation. They understand enzymes. Some of the things that are the magic workers for us in the brew world can help you in some other crafts as well. So the one that's taking up a lot of my time right now is cheese making. And cheese making began in 2002. Like many professional brewers, on the end of the brew day, we're left with a lot of spent grain, thousands of pounds of it. And the local farmers and the brewers have a wonderful relationship that they take our spent grain for free. It supplements their feed bill. They don't have to buy more food for their animals, and we need to get rid of it. And what a cost that would be to have to get rid of wet, heavy grain. So it's a great relationship. So we had a couple farmers that were helping us out, and they would feed it to their livestock, to their goats, cows, Brahma bull, pigs. All of us have tasted spent grain. It doesn't taste very good. We got all the goodness out of it, but there is a lot of roughage there. The pigs are fed spent grain before they go to market. It gets them, they kind of bloat, gets them bigger and heavier. I heard the Brahma bull really loves it. They kind of dump the thing and run, and the bull just comes up. Cows love it, and the goats love it, and they'll fight for it too. One really nice farmer lady, she brought me raw goat's milk in 2002 as a present for giving her this grain. And I thought, wow, a light bulb just went off. Boom. I mean, what a fantastic and green way to get another food product out of my malted barley. So the cheese making kind of took off. And as I got into the hobby, I was just fascinated by the similarities and the differences to home brewing. But it's a very ancient practice, much like brewing. And it does scratch the same itch for me. And perhaps some of you that are already, I saw the show of hands earlier, that make cheese. I know my friend Horace down here makes cheese, and many other people are having fun with that right now. It's very kind of limiting compared to home brewing. You know, we have one raw material, milk. You're not going to the milk store and buying Crystal 15 milk and chocolate. Well, you can buy chocolate milk, but wow, I just had an idea. Anyway, I find it very procedural compared to home brewing. Home brewing has the beautiful balance of art and science. A handful of this works too, or you can weigh everything out. But cheese making is very procedural. All cheeses, and there's over 2,500 different kinds in the world, are exactly the same to this one point in the process, and then they go boom into their 2,500 different ways. And the differences in the cheeses are so minute that it's just incredible, and I find it very fascinating. So I've been going to cheese school a few times. The Dairy Institute at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo has a wonderful program at their Dairy Institute. It's a 20,000-foot place that has some of the world's best cheesemakers there. And they offer these 3- and 4-day courses that are just fantastic. You get to see the animals, you get cheese make days, and you get to learn all about the science. So on 4 different occasions over the last 9 years, I've gone out to Cal Poly. I'm looking for any excuse to go do those things. I'm going to start repeating courses pretty soon, I think. But the similarities to home brewing are many. And I think one is the sanitation aspect. Really important to make our art come out the way we want it to come out. We have to have that sanitation in place. So to a cheesemaker who hasn't done anything before them, that's kind of a hard lesson to learn. But I think for a home brewer, it's real easy. You're already there. Limited ingredients, producing a vast array of types and styles. I think there's a real similarity there. The use of enzymes, nature's magic little workers. In my brew kettle, in my mash tun I should say, they're the ones turning my starch to sugar. And in my cheese making, they're the ones coagulating the solids in the milk to form the solid there. And then the real fun one, I think, is the serendipity at work. Both of these were happy accidents, right? Airborne yeast, all it needs to do is find a sugar source, and you're going to have fermentation. And milk storage vessels in the old days, often stomach linings of animals, where they would put the milk in. Well, there's enzymes in those stomach linings, and those enzymes made a solid. So there was a guy on a horse many years ago who wanted to take milk somewhere, and when he got to his destination, he went for the drink and nothing came out. He had a big solid clump in there, and their cheese was born. So I like to think there's a spirit, a power, whatever your spirituality may be, that's directing us to these wonderful, wonderful things. I think someone looked down and said, life looks pretty hard down there. I better get some alcohol going. And it'll ease it up a little bit. And boy, they're just not figuring this milk thing out. It's too short-lived. Okay, I'll make it so it lasts months now. I'll have them discover that. So I think the serendipity aspect is really interesting. And then what's wonderful about these two hobbies is that together they're delicious and they can be paired. So I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about the 3 cheeses I made. I'm sensing that there are more people in this room than I had cubes diced. So sorry about that, buddy.
Share.
Well, maybe now's a good time to talk about this. I do have plans to make commercial cheese through a name called Cheesmith Micro Creamery. And that's going to come about hopefully sooner than later, although it's quite a lot of hoops to jump. And when you travel and you go to Belgium especially, these wonderful brewers that invite you into their homes and share you're sitting on a chair they made, you're eating bread they baked, they bring out the cheeses they made. We had smoked salmon at Vapeur that with Harold and my buddies over here, we went on a trip, and terribly inspirational to see these Renaissance men at work. And I just tried to steal a little bit from his soul and put it in mine. And I think about that all the time. Some of those wonderful Renaissance men and women of Europe that can really direct you into doing things like this. So I would